term limits prevent the city's elected officials from serving more than 6 years in any one office. Yet serving on the Planning Commission is not subject to term limits. Would you support or oppose term limits for members of the Planning Commission, and why?
Thank you for having me here. Yes, I would, because from what I've seen and heard and read, that these people that have been there forever are not moving ahead. And I keep saying that Houston is it's an international city, becoming more and more an international city year by year. But yet we're not moving fast enough with the change. For the simple reason that it's old school, still sitting there. And by all means, I do support it, and I would like to see some changes there.
Our final question, dealing with neighborhood integrity, goes to candidate Ed Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, in 2007, Mayor White brought forward an ordinance that created the city's first and so far only protected historic district in the Old Sixth Ward. Do you support the creation of additional protected historic districts, for instance, the Freeland Historic District? And if so, would you seek to amend the Historic Preservation Ordinance to include a process by which other qualified areas could seek protected historic district status?
Yes, pardon me. It's an honor to be here this evening, and thank you to all the participating organizations that have worked so hard to have this forum here tonight. And it's an honor for me in particular because I celebrate my 40th birthday today, so I'm glad to be here with everybody. In response to the question, yes, absolutely, I would support more protected historic districts. As a community liaison on a volunteer basis with then Councilman Adrian Garcia, I assisted with some of the meetings and was aware of the process and bringing that about, and the community worked very hard to make that happen. So, I think it's really important that we protect that history. There's a lot of historic structures there, and we've seen the property values rise there, and so it's been a really a great benefit. Historic preservation is a great thing for our city. And for example, with the Freeland historic community they have a battle underway right now because there's a developer that's trying to move in and bring a new residential structure there that's not compatible with the community there. And that is the only street that still remains intact. All the houses there are the only ones that still remain intact in the historic area. So we need to make sure we work hard to support those efforts and create more historic protected districts. I think high-capacity transit, I think we need to definitely look at the busy activity centers throughout the city, the busy residential areas, mass transit or rapid transit. We need to make sure that we're working smart, that we're getting community input to make sure that it's not just for the purpose of creating new development, but actually moving people. That's what public transit should be. We need to make sure we're smart, that we're investing those dollars in a smart way with a comprehensive plan. And not only light rail or rapid rail, but that we're also considering commuter rail, perhaps going further out into the suburbs so that we can have a connecting line to some of our light rail stations as well. So we need to make sure that we're working hard to look at a comprehensive plan, not just piecemeal, looking at 7-mile stretches of rail. We need to be looking broader than that and really create a world-class comprehensive transit system that looks at other alternatives as well. So we need to make sure that we're placing these stations in locations that are going to be moving the maximum amount of people to employment centers.
Yes, I would. And in that issue, that's one of the reasons that I decided to run because of the problems that we're having. I see that our infrastructure is not being built correctly on a daily basis. I I see how they come out, and even though I'm not an engineer, it doesn't take me to know that when they build something, you stare at it, and then 2-3 years later, they come back and change it. There goes our tax dollars again. And then 2-3 years later, they come back and tear it up again and change it. There goes our tax dollars again. So by all means, I would. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes to Gonzalo Camacho. Mr. Camacho, District H contains some of the city's oldest neighborhoods and infrastructure. What, if any, changes do you think should be made to the way the aging infrastructure in these neighborhoods is maintained and or replaced?
Thank you. What I think in reality are two different things. The city is in debt, $12 billion. We're not paying our retirement plan, and we have a deficit between $8 and $11 billion, depends who you talk to. So it's easier to say a lot about things, but how we're going to get them done is a whole different story. Protecting historic properties, I would like to see a freeze on property value. How you buy it and that property becomes a historically registered building, then I think the market value should be frozen as an incentive for people to keep those properties historic. Infrastructure, as an engineer, I know some of the challenges. I've designed the streets, the storm sewers, and many other factors that are involved in developing an urban area. So I have a lot of tricks under my arm. One of the elements that I would encourage is we don't need to build very wide streets. We can change different methods. So there are ways to do it. It's not an easy process, but I think we need to establish our priorities first and work with each neighborhood that says, okay, what's important? You cannot have all 10 things, you can have the top 3. And that's what I would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Hugo Mohica. Mr. Mohica, the federal government has funds ready for shovel-ready projects. Without naming specific projects, in what area should the priorities be for District H?
Thank you. That's an excellent question because there's a lot of need here in this area of town. And when we talk about District H, it's actually the infrastructure with District H has been neglected for far too long, a long time. And we need to start electing people that actually do the infrastructure, put in place the infrastructure. And then in terms of the second ward, and then north of 610, it's been neglected for far too long. So I would focus either first on this area of town, and then I would go up to the north of 610, and then I would go around to the district. So, but I know that there's so many needs in District H, and the challenge is there's a finite amount of money. And however, the federal government, it's through the stimulus package money, we're going to get some money, and we're going to be able to expedite some capital improvement projects, which usually takes up to 7 years from the design phase all the way to construction phase, and that's far too long. And our infrastructure in District H it's been neglected for far too long, and we need to start addressing that now because it's going to be a bigger problem in the future. So, as you council member, I'll use the limited resources we have to get as much done as possible for District H.